this living library of imagination where we don't have books, but we have people that share their story. So that's the concept. And it's more of a conversation. It's not really an interview. We're here to talk about legislative rainbow.
I think that the first question is what is rainbow of desire? Because I'm pretty much, well, I'm not sure, but I have my really big suspicions that what Boal rainbows of desire and what I'm calling rainbow of desire are not the same. Uh, and that is probably because it's work in progress. It would have probably evolved and changed also if Boal would have been with us. But it's always been, for me, I always saw it as an invitation for regarding it as a work as in progress of something that can keep changing. And so first and the most important is that Rainbow of Desire is not a therapy. It's been published, I think, in the English version, translation of Boal. It's written as the therapy of the theater of the oppressed. I find it completely, utterly wrong. It's not a therapy. It's draw a lot from constellation, from psychodrama, etc. But that's just the surface. Actually, what Rainbow of Desire offer, it's the place for a group, not for the individual to tell their story, but for the group to draw their story as a group. As I often said it to Angelo, it's instead of being a group therapy, it's becoming a therapy of the group, which means the one is a group, not the individual who consists of it. And if we agree to look at rainbow with this perception, what we came to think in legislative rainbow was again how a group can create their stories, their group stories, but in this case with specific mission to draw legislation or what we call a micro legislation, and Angelo uh, will be the right person to share more about the micro part of the legislation. Uh, but that's becoming the mission of the group. It's drawing one story, which is the group story, and doing it in order to draw norm and legislation or code of conducts that enable the group to have a better being, to have a better well-being, basically, whether it's in a workspace or in any other setting where the group need to be together. That's in a fly of in a glance, the idea of legislative rainbow.
I wanted to add that in a way, what Amit created the method, the technique, and I helped him in systematizing writing and also experimented a little bit with the technique. And I think is very useful because existing researches show that we spend most of the time of our life in small communities. No, we don't spend the hours of our life alone in most of the hours, and we don't spend most of the hours of our life in public spaces. We spend a big part of our life in communities, in small communities, no? And so as Amit is saying, promoting the well-being of people in small communities becomes very important because it's where we actually spend a big part of our life. It could be school, could be work, could be extended families, could be also communities of practice, people doing the same things together, etc. And in a way, we felt that the legislative approach of Boal was very important and as Amit said, an ongoing ongoing adaptation and ongoing experiment. But it was mainly focusing on big communities. No, we are legislating for a municipality, legislating for we are not legislating for a team of people at work. We are not legislating for a group of university students, a class of students in secondary school, and where we're actually there is a void in a way. There is a void of normativity. No, we there is probably big frameworks of normativity that they rule the interaction in a way, but within those big frameworks there is a freedom in a way to self-regulate. No, and so the method that Amit created and I helped systematize is a way to generate norms and codes of conducts and normativity in general, nor to self-generate normativity to feel better together in the time and space that we share. No? in a in the paper we wrote, we said that a community is a group of people that share time, space, and resources, no? Physical and material and immaterial resources. No? And of course, we can include also other species, other living being in that. So we can imagine human beings and also other other
Mhm.
living being in that. But the idea is how do we use theater to produce normativity to live a better life together in a small community. That's a little bit my point.
Yeah, I think, well, I want to go back to a couple of things around, well, first of all, I realize that maybe some people don't, rainbow theater, legislative
Yeah.
theater are things that they are not maybe
Yes.
familiar with.
Yeah.
Just giving a
Mhm.
little bit, so I think that these are two of the, let's say, methodologies or techniques, it's hard to say, that are situated within theater of the oppressed and Augusto Boal's work, with legislative theater being more connected with using forum theater, which is another technique or
Yeah.
methodology, to make legislation.
Yeah.
And that's actually experience that Boal was engaged in Brazil as a senator, as a legislator in the state of Rio de Janeiro, and other people around the world are implementing and using that to try to make change through theater. And then the rainbow of desires, which is more, yeah, I would agree, like an introspective part of the theater of the oppressed that looks at the internalized oppression. But then again, so this question of therapy, which rose, I think, I'm not sure if you are in, there is a WhatsApp group with about 260 practitioners, and someone, very short question,
Mhm.
wrote, I think he's from Iran, asked, do you need to be a psychologist to do Rainbow of Desire? And apparently, because some other practitioner in Iran, who they is a psychologist, is
Mhm.
kind of was claiming that you need to be. And then there were different responses on the group on that. I also responded. Hector, we both know, responded, who is also a psychologist in training, and
Mhm.
um, and I think there was an interesting kind of resonance from that, and the
Mhm.
distinction you started to make, Amit, about
Yeah.
what is it in therapy and how is it in therapy, and
Yeah.
also maybe the other part of that question, that the innocent question there is,
Mhm.
um, what kind of training or capacities you need in order to
Yeah.
hold a rainbow. And then going back also to what you said, Angelo, because
Mhm.
again, you talked about normativity, which again, for some people, maybe it's something that's part of their studies or training, uh, but what do we mean about norms, and how does the legislative rainbow, this, let's say, hybrid process, supports this norms, and again, what is the need that this is responding to, if it makes sense?
The mythology saying that Boal started to develop the Rainbow of Desire when he went to Europe in the mid-80s and realized that people around have not so much external oppression around them, well, not as much as people in Brazil at the time. But nevertheless, their daily action, their daily way of acting upon things or reacting to things consist of a lot of oppression. So he started to suspect that maybe all those oppressions that he sees vividly on the daily life in Brazil is somehow internalized in the West. That's a mythology. There is other story saying that his wife was a psychologist and it came from there. But that's not really the point. What is the point is that in the very basic classic Rainbow of Desire, one is sharing his story or situation, and through a technique, we can call it, or through several techniques, actually, uh, he, he or she or they put on stage, physically embodied on stage, their voices of oppressions. And those voices of oppression, they get body, they get their own worries, their own desires, their own wish to stop our storyteller or push our storyteller through certain direction, and all that, of course, because from their point of view, they are serving the best interest of our storyteller. And by doing it, by putting all this arsenal of voices on stage with body, we actually offer to cast a light on the different oppression, and then we can seek advice from the other participant of how those voices can be addressed, what strategies can be used in order to address the often very genuine fear that those voices are expressing. That's the very classic model of Rainbow of Desire. And what I've been doing in the last 7 or 8 years was to promote my participant that whenever they go on stage in order to pose a worry or fear or desire of someone else, and that's where it's changing from being a therapy and it becoming a group story. They shall not go on stage in order to serve the story of their colleague, in order to serve the story of the storyteller, but they should come on stage only if they recognize and resonate with this desire that they are about to pose. So from the moment that they are on stage, they are actually there because they want to recount their own story. They have their own issue with the subject. They are no longer there in order to support the storyteller, which is pretty much what you do in a family constellation, for example, but they are there in order to bring the light to their desire, to their fear, to their problem. They are very well familiar. That's why they normally don't really need to ask the storyteller many questions of how to act upon their role, because they are not there to act upon the role that he designed, or she or they. They are about to act upon the role that brought them to stage. And that what happens is very fast, it's stopping to be the story of the storyteller and becoming the embedded stories of all the voices that came on stage. In other words, we're creating a new story that embeds, it conceals, it embroidered inside it all the different fraction and element of stories that were in the room at this moment. It's always about this moment in this room, the here and now. And this story is the story that we are addressing, whether we're doing a legislative rainbow, or whether we are doing any other kind of form of rainbow. But we are always looking at this story, the story that the group had created.
Yeah, and also for the question on normativity, no, I think this process helps the community, or as we say in our article, the ecosystem, no, the human ecosystem that composes the community, is supported by legislative rainbow in developing some sentences at the end, no, like short sentences that express a normativity, like norms, or um, actions that are taken or that should not be taken, that become the rules of the ecosystem, and they are self-produced, self-created, and adopted, and also monitored, to be a container of the life of the ecosystem, no, in a given moment. And then having them monitored over time is to make sure that they still serve the life of the ecosystem, and they don't become like like cages, no. So they are in a way some boundaries, some containers of the interaction, no? They could apply to many things, that when we share time and space and resources, we could have many boundaries that we feel to put there, to make sure that we all feel safe, and that we can grow, and that we can be in a healthy relation with ourselves and with the others in the community.
Yeah.
So we can imagine a group of students or a group of professionals at work, how they choose to give themselves norms, to rule their day by day interaction. Okay,
Yeah,
I
and
hope I could
yeah,
answer. Yeah.
yeah. And something that came up as you were
Mhm.
sharing before, and you were saying we spend our time more in the small groups. I said, look, what came
Mhm.
to me is we spend our time on the phones. This is where people spend their time most, statistically speaking.
Mm,
Um,
you were
um,
mentioning a group, a WhatsApp group of
yes,
200 people,
yeah, and
where
I
you
think.
spend part of your time. So,
Yeah, well,
so that.
there is a statistics. I will quote it inaccurately, but basically, the average young person, especially in the U.S. or
Mm,
even in Western Europe, spends 8, 9 hours a day on devices, and much
Mhm.
of it is on social media, which is in a way, once you think about it, human ecosystems, because uh, although they are disembodied, they represent relationships. Some of them
Mhm.
have physical consequences sometimes, and some not. Um, and I'm listening about these rules that, well, when you I hear about laws in the small group, it's like rules and regulations. Like one of the things that I do, I'm an admin in several groups, and there's also like regulate. How do we regulate as a group, and what are I think that's the rules and regulations, the norms in that sense, what is accepted, what is not accepted, what is useful, what is not useful. And then to tie it back to this
Mhm.
rainbow of possibilities of the collective psyche as representing of the groups, um, not an individual, but as a collective.
Yeah.
The question is how doing theater in that context,
Mhm.
if it does support this regulations
Yeah.
making, and what are the maybe concrete examples of implementing that you experimented or you see possible?
Mm.
Um, Angelo, do you want to try to
Yeah,
answer?
well, yeah. There is a process that we describe also in our article that is, in a way, is the technique. Now we systematize, we describe the technique in the way Amit developed it, and I, also experimented around it. In the and it's um, there are many steps in which we, as Amit already described, no, we start with the story of one proponent, a person who wants to propose something of a conflictive situation, and then from that, people are invited to enter the stage. And to, if they feel that that story of the person who proposed it concerns them, no, what is inviting them to go there, and we build a sort of rainbow with the desires and demons. No, demons are the fears we have related to the issue that is being presented. And then there is all, I mean, it's all described in detail, both in, I think, in the website partially, and more in detail in the article. Um, and then there is a how do we call it? I mean, a legislative
Womb, the
womb,
legislative womb. Yeah.
legislative womb, like an incubator of norms that is composed of people either that they are very involved in the issue, people who know nothing about the issue, people who come from outside the community, people who come from inside the community. So in a way, is a small group of people as diverse as we can that observe the all creation of the rainbow, and they identify what could be the norms that could serve the ecosystem in that moment. So in a way, it builds, of course, on Rainbow of Desire and on legislative theater, but it uses a legislative cell like the one of Boal that
Mhm.
was based on forum theater, and it uses a different version of Rainbow of Desire. Um, Amit, you did your first experience in Australia, if I remember well, no? And again, Amit will explain about that. Then we did our second experience in Milan in 2019, exploring the story of a teacher, school teacher, who had a conflict with her supervisor. In school on the integration of children on migrants children in a kindergarten, I think. Yeah,
Yeah.
kindergarten. That was one example, and we observed in a way what kind of normativity we could produce as a group. Although it was a group that was created in that place, it wasn't really a community spending years together.
Yeah.
And then a third experiment which I did was in a sort of eco village in the end of 2020, and part of them they were living together actually, and some of them were like coming just for the workshop, and it was on how we take care of elder parents when we live in a community. Now we live in an eco village. We are 30, 40 years old, and our parents are getting older and older, and how we keep a relation with them, a close relation with them, how we take care of them, while at the same time we chose to live in a community and we're far away, etc. And this resonated with many of the participants. Um, Although, as you can see, the three case studies are not really or exclusively on a community that is experimenting on living together, spending time together, maybe not living, but working together or studying together for a year, for 2 years. And so we are still, at least from my point of view, at the stage in which we need to experiment more on with the real ecosystems with a group of people. I imagine, for example, a master course at university could be 1 year or 2 years. No, a group of 25, 30 students could be interesting to say, okay, for 1 year, let's set our rules and we evolve because we are an ecosystem. We are going to study together. We are going to share experiences, to learn, to disagree, etc. So we are probably still looking for that opportunity to experiment and evaluate on a longer term if this could be a way to serve the life of students, professionals, extended families,
Yeah.
or co-housing, people living together between different families. It could be a tool for small communities.
Yeah. I can add that, yeah, none of our test case were all the factors that we were wishing to have in order to define them as a full human ecosystem. They had either the resources shared, the time shared, or the space shared, but none of them had all of them for a longer period. What is really tantalizing and in the models that Angelo and myself has been developed and systemized is that it's really fast. It's really, really fast. I mean, if we look in other form of setting up rules in community, we normally talk about some kind of round circle, round table, dialogue, etc. And we all have experienced few of those round table dialogue, and we know that they can be quite a tiring experience. And they can be also an experience that never have an ending point because um, because of the nature of round table. And here we have something that actually in within 3 to 4 hours, you have brought up the issues that somehow bothered the community because it was not the first to come, this will be the subject. It's been voted by resonance to be the subject that this certain community really feels that it's the wound that they need to attend this moment. So in 3, 4 hours, you brought the subject, the real subject, and one of the things, and again, legislative theater is a beautiful model, but it serves a complete different purpose, and very often it's very impersonal. Very often it speaks about a declaration of a problem. Because when you go in a big system, you want to make a legislation process that will cater for the broader good of a broader society, not necessarily of the individual good of a small ecosystem. And here we're going really fast into what is really laying beneath the surface. What is the real pain? Where is the real issue? And very often we find out that there is both in both cases that Angelo mentioned in Milan and in Australia, the declared story, the declared reason voted by resonance by the group was not the real story. But by putting up the rainbow on stage, by bringing up the real voices of desires and demon, and I will explain in a moment why we call them demons and not fears. Uh, the real story of this particular group in this particular moment has revealed itself very fast, and healing process could start very fast. We did not need to spend hours of negotiating where is the wound. The wound was there in a fraction of half an hour. And it was clear that it's not about one individual wound, that the rest is there to cater, but that it's the wound of the group. It's what's painful for the group right now. And that brings me to what happened after Rainbow, what Angelo beautifully wrote as behind Rainbow. Because a big part of the process is not actually applying or setting up the norm or applying the norm. In all cases that we've studied until now, we have had a very little norm that was voted by consensus to be applied, and even those that were voted to be applied not necessarily has been applied. But it's created a new level of consciousness in the group, and it's brought the group to a place that Angelo described in the article as behind the rainbow, which have three main points. Can you share them again, Angelo? Because I'm not sure. I don't want to mistake them. They were beyond
Uh,
recognition.
yeah, it was beyond projection, beyond second, I don't remember. The third is beyond legislation, which is what you are mentioning. Now, let me check the second one. Anyway, yeah, that's the full point of going beyond, for me, to go beyond the legislation per se. Is not just a production of normativity.
Yeah, and it makes me think, I've also played with many of those techniques with legislative theater as well. I've tried things around dragon dreaming, which also seems somehow relevant because we're talking about
Mhm.
how community organizes itself in different ways and how, in a way, original people, original culture, indigenous, have handled themselves for a very long time. Good or bad, that's a moralistic judgment that we can make per se from
Mhm.
our worldview and perspectives. But, we can definitely say that, for Aboriginal people of Australia, they have lived in without wars, without major wars, without currency, and in relative prosperity in a very harsh land, following certain laws. Which it's interesting because when I read about law in Aboriginal concept, it's very different than the law that we use. So the law that we use is a law, Roman law, that is the human law over land. And the law, when I hear Aboriginals speak, it's the law of the land. The law is what is the ancestor put in the earth, and we listen to the law of the land. It's not the law over the land, right? And this is, again, I think it's very decentralizing as a Western settler colonial perspective to see things that, again, more than human world, the earth, the land, has a voice. And that's part of my own experimentation with, right now I'm call it Rainbow of All Beings, which combines a little bit. I started with Stuck, which is from social presence in theater, which is kind of like looking at where the places we're stuck, but as an embodied process. And then there is a group form of this stuck, like a group stuck. And then it felt very natural to connect it with the rainbow, because the forces in the stuck became the voices. And then at some point, I added the council of all being from work that reconnects, and that's where it becomes a whole new process, rainbow of all being. And what is fascinating, some of the things that you share resonate with how the story, even if I don't say it, but I say it often, is it's the story becomes of the group, and the story that resonated for whatever becomes something, and everyone finds something in that other story that was chosen. Um,
Yeah.
and sometimes it's very profound to be a voice in someone else's story, more than you would expect it. And at the same time, there is sort of like sort of wisdom in the process, I would say. There is an intelligence of the process of the group that comes. And again, what I am coming to this being, so in the beings part, which is still I've experimented mostly online and only once in person. Um, People come as masks and they bring the wisdom of nature into that process. And this is fascinating for me, the kind of depth that embodying the more than human brings to spaces. And again, I'm doing all of this to go back to actually what's next for you. Like, where do you see that,
Mhm.
or what's your dream for that? Like, you're talking about like
Mhm.
you've done some testing, some experiments. It's not the perfect setting. What is there's no perfect, but what is the setting that you're seeking right now in order to take this process forward? And where do you feel from now, the beginning of 2026, um, this is then yeah, what is calling you in this right now to explore?
Wow, our resolution for 2026. Uh, I would say that in great, my resolution would be to recultivate humanity, and it sounds so such a slogan and so naive to say it, but the truth is that uh, we uh, I am personally feeling that I live in a time that of such a polarization, of such a binarity. uh, I feel partly responsible for it. I feel partly that theater of the oppressed is responsible for this polarization, that instead of being the remedy, it became part of the disease. Uh, Promoting binarity, promoting oppressor-oppressed perception of the world. So personally, I do wish, as a great teacher of mine said, to cultivate humanity, even if it's mean to denounce everything that to do with theater of the oppressed on the way to do it. Um, but the model per se it's a standalone model. It's cooked, it's well tested. We have a beautiful website that, thanks to you, Uri, is drawing attention. And I'm very much sure that we can proceed and seek for a research optimal situation, uh, to test it more and more, and to keep writing about it, but as a model that can work well for small human ecosystem, a group, whether professional group, workplace, any kind of group that consists of few individual to up to 20, 25. It's ready. It's ready, and it's wait for you guys who watch us to send us an email, and we'll come over and offer it to you, because it's a nice model. It's really a nice model. It can work well, and I hope it will have its chance to work, and not to stay as a theoretical model, but to be um, practiced often by different group. Yeah, that's my 2026 resolution for this model. I'm doing other things as well, but for this model, that's my wish and resolution. Yeah. How about you, Angelo? How is
Thank
it for
you.
you?
Well, for me, I think we when we end our article, we actually have two dreams or two recommendations for follow up, however we call them, which is to experiment more for a longer period of time with the same community. No? And I hope I can do it in over this year with Amit. And the second one is to diversify the communities with whom we experimented.
Yeah.
It's different to do it with a university course or to do it with a group of elderly people or a group of migrants in a shelter, etc. No, and as we say in our article, communities are not all the same. Some communities are you are there because you have to be there. For example, if you are a minor child in a family, you don't really choose to be there. No, you are there because you must be there. And then, or other communities are elective. We choose to be there. Some communities last for 1 year, and you already know that they will last for 1 year, like, I don't know, a master course. Other communities are could last forever, but they don't always last forever. So there is in our article we talk about how we can appreciate these differences in the motivation why I'm part of a community. Sometimes it's also because I have no choice and I can still contribute to that community. In other situations I chose, etc. So my first dream is to experiment with one community for longer time. Second dream is to experiment with different communities, very different communities. So the ones where people actually don't even want to be there, but they must be there for some reason. And then how can they, find a way to be an ecosystem also there, or maybe a temporary community, a community that they already know that they will not last for long. But when they are there, they want to use theater and to find a beautiful and engaging way to live together, to share resources together. So these are my two dreams.
I can add to what Angelo said that broadening the opportunities to meet other groups and those that normally, at least here in Europe, are drawn to the idea of social theater or theater of the oppressed particularly is also very intriguing. I mean, we have this a bit of a caricature of what are the age group and who are the profile of people who are drawn to try a different model of theater of the oppressed. And, uh, and actually we are looking into a model that is much more inclusive, much more inclusive. It's you don't need to be a diehard student or a revolutionary idealist for the moment. You don't need to belong to a certain political bon ton. It's yeah. I mean, you can be an high-tech working team who look of having a little bit better communication skill between your members. Uh, and that's something that I definitely had it as part of my dream. It's to broaden the communities that are actually being exposed to what we have to offer. And yeah, yeah, I think that this would be real nice.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah, a few things that came to my mind, a few ideas for you to think with, and maybe one proposal.
Mm.
But One thing that came is, you spoke about eco villages, and I've been around this network of eco villages. There's a lot of eco villages that there is not a lot. There's some eco villages in Europe that are doing well for years. There are many eco villages that do well for some time and then break apart. More than that than the first category. And even more, there are intentionals that never manifest, like the dreams of community. So the dream of community, I feel, is more prominent than the reality of community. But this is actually a very interesting stage, maybe, for an intentional project to actually engage with this. And so, like, before we buy a land and start to build houses and so on, maybe we invest in legislative rainbow with that potential and see if we can regulate, normatize something, because I think the risk is that then you don't
Yeah.
arrive to that, and then you're already late. You're already there with the problems of the land, and then that there's always and so that's one direction that I think is quite interesting. Another very opposite somehow to that, not opposite, but I've been around the several experimentation with democracy in the last year with the deliberative democracy, which is the democracy that we don't usually consider it, but the democracy that we are currently applying is just one form of possible democracy. The representative democracy is just one form of democracy. There are other forms. So deliberative democracy and citizen assemblies, and I've been part of a transnational permanent citizen assembly experimentation called Democratic Odyssey. I think within that field, which is growing in Europe, there is more interest in this kind of participation. Again, I think there are people also bringing legislative theater there, but then it's maybe what you're developing is even a better fit for that than the traditional legislative theater um, um, because of the mix between the temporariness of the assembly, because the assembly, it shouldn't be a permanent thing, but sometimes it's a year, sometimes it's more years that people are part of an assembly, but also that it's not law that is being made. It's not about the law. It's about the deliberation, that the process is the outcome in some way. And it sounds like also here the process is very much the outcome. Um, so that's and kind of on the opposite spectrum. Another more of a idea or a challenge or a proposal, business proposal is I um, I have been, and this kind of been pushed into this virtual spaces, and I have been doing Rainbow online, something like Rainbow. Let's call it like something like Rainbow, um, and it works in some ways, So everything it's weird to say in this way. What do you know? How do you know it works? What is working? What's your evidence based?
Mhm.
Um, but people are touched, people feel transformed, whether they do or not get transformed. I don't know. I need more evidence-based objective research, but they 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 come back to it. So I guess there's something there. So I again, this is again more of a challenge proposal, and I know that it's very difficult to do these processes in virtual spaces, but maybe an experiment could be something. And we'll see if it doesn't work at all, we can throw it back to the generative AI to make sense of. But so instead of there's not the waste disposal doesn't exist anymore. We have AI for that instead of lost ideas. Um, so that's a few thoughts that I have. But and also again, just rearticulating for people listening, watching us, to go to the website to read the article and to create their ideas. Maybe they have better ideas than any of the three of us
Yeah.
about where it needs to go, I guess.
Mm.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, the online experiment is it deserves attention, especially for communities that actually maybe they meet mainly online. So They may, I mean, as you were mentioning, there are also some groups of practitioners of theater of the press that they don't actually meet physically. They meet online, WhatsApp, etc. So it could be a way to do. Okay, let's set up some rules. No, I mean, WhatsApp groups can be oppressive sometimes for too much for communication that is not very well regulated, and so maybe is in the interest of the whole group to do that. Yeah, yeah.
I have my reservation for it. I would love to try it, but I would love to try it. I would love to participate in it. I'm not sure I would be feeling the most comfortable to lead it. My reservation has to do with two elements that I have not found yet in any online session, which is the real creation of what Lorca called duante. When Lorca have a beautiful poem about, and he called it the duande. The duande, it's a sense that the hair on your hand is starting to stand up. And you don't know why. I mean, something in the air, something in the pheromone, something in the sweat of the other people make your hair stand up. You are engaged in a way that is not longer about exchanging idea or exchanging emotion, but on a very mythical, physical way behind it. And that's where the magic actually starts. That's why theater is always imminent and is always a one-time happening. You cannot play the same play twice. You won't be the same, your audience won't be the same. Uh, and that's something I have not found as participant in any online setting. I don't know, maybe we miss the quality of smell or something. Uh, and the other is a tendency of online sessions for whatever kind to become a very individual session. At the end, it's about what each of us taking on, the excitement we had, the climax we had, which we can have, absolutely. We can have different theatrical, dramatic climax online, but it's a very lone experience. There's no, it's not really consist in a group conscious. So that's why I'm wary of it. But again, if anyone want to give it a try, I'll be a happy participant in it. And you, Uri, what is your plan what is your resolution for 2026?
We can't hear you, Uri.
I don't have so much have a resolution because I don't know about resolution. Doesn't it's not that I don't believe in it. It's just I
Mm,
don't understand the word completely, I guess.
mhm,
But I've done a process with a friend. We recorded most of it of anchoring the new in the first 7 days of the year. Yesterday it was the last of that. And I spoke with a spoke. I had a little a session with a young olive tree, uh, and the olive tree suggested some anchoring words for the year ahead, and I have them on my wall because I made a drawing from that, and it's beauty, stillness, and playfulness. And playfulness, it's interesting. Playfulness came as wildness,
mhm,
and then it became playfulness because I understood that when the tree was saying wildness, what translating it to human was playfulness, and that wildness is nature's way of being playful, and it's also playful is the human way of being wild maybe, but I feel I'm still sensing what it means and how it unfolds. And as I'm writing my PhD proposal and looking at the year ahead, those words, anchoring words, those guides are still finding their way. I feel. And I'm not exactly sure. But I know I love to have conversations with people like yourselves. And maybe that's my PhD to to have those conversations and to gather knowledge and possibilities as they emerge. I feel what we heard, what we conversed about and listened to today is something that I believe is very useful and needed in the world. So much needed that um, that nobody seems to pay attention. So, so because fully, you know, so I do hope it's more of a wish than a resolution is that we wake up for the neededness of what we were talking about here, of the that collectively we understand that that's this type of work, you know, whatever we call it, is something that is needed on a deep layer. And otherwise, we're collectively stuck. We're globally stuck. You know, otherwise, we have president in abducting other presidents from their beds with their wives and making that that's the way of doing justice in politics right now in that sphere. And but I feel, you know, um until um we figure out what we want human to be, to mean, what being human, because we know or we knew what being human was, and then we try to change what means to be being human. But the question is, what is being human in the future? What
Mm.
do we want being human to mean in the future? And
Mm.
until we meet that question collectively, then we're just going to be stuck in a process, in a storm, our self-made disaster. Yeah, hurricane, like in the background here in the theater. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Um, hmm.
Yeah, I feel in a way what you were saying at the beginning on the, theater of the oppressed being reinvented and contextualized. I feel legislative rainbow is also adding something to theater of the oppressed if we want to include it in the tree or maybe no. I mean it's but to say that basically when there is an internalized oppression that is of an individual, we can use rainbow of desire. When we work on in a small community, an ecosystem, you can use legislative rainbow. When you have a kind of a socially recognized issue, you can use forum theater. And when you want a normativity, impersonal normativity, as Amit said, no, you can use legislative theater. No, so in a way, I feel we are filling a gap, no? That we Boal was working on individual oppressions, on social oppressions, on collective historical systemic oppressions, and the community is missing, no? In a way, no, we don't have a tool to work with the people we spend maybe 70% of our life with. No, so in a way, I feel this is another gift to to humanity, to say, okay, we had another way to fight oppression, but beyond that, to rehumanize, to look also, from my point of view, to reconcile with the after conflicts, to build peace together. So that's I think it also fits into an idea of at which level we are going to work with which technique.
Yeah. And
Mm.
just to add that another beauty of it, because I've been occupying myself quite a lot in the last 2 years with another beautiful model called communication non-violence, non-violence communication. In non-violence communication, you work mostly with needs instead of desires. You work with needs, but and it's a beautiful process, and it's a very verbal process. So one thing to add, which makes the magic, the process that we offer is pretty much, I would say, half non-verbal. I mean, it's first the embodiment, it's first the image, it's first everything that come in the image, and before it get named, before, the very basic exercise that I always do in the first 10 minutes of the first meeting with newcomer, is that I'm asking them to do an image and to describe the image of the other, but I emphasize how important it's to create the image without giving a verbal instruction. Because from the moment you instruct, your partner to smile, this can be nothing else but a smile. But if you just show them, it can have so many meaning and so many interpretation, and it's tells such a big story already. And the work always starts there. It's always start with a body. It's always start with an image. It's always start with what stories are already existing in the room before anyone even started to verbalize anything. And that's part of it, of the magic. That's part of the fast forward of the process as well. Because by the time that we start to verbalize things, we already have pretty much all the information we needed, just by the image that is already staged. And so, unlike other models that are amazing, I'm a great fond. I just finished I just became an initiator of mediation in NVC and etc. I love it very much, but unlike NVC or other models that are going straight to the parole, to the word, to a verbal expression of the situation,
Social
we
art.
go from the embodied to the physical expression of the
Regeneration.
situation, and that makes things so much more fun and so much more
Regeneration.
playful and so much more
Regeneration.
liberating,
Universal
because
right,
Regeneration.
we are
right,
so
right.
much more
Imagination.
free when we can just show how we are and not need to explain it. And yeah, so that's the beauty of being 3 years old. And it's an invitation to be 3 years old again for in a context. In a context. Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking also that, as we were saying, sometimes people prefer, top-down approaches because they feel that methods of consensus or like kind of more participatory methods are exhausting, inconclusive, frustrating, etc. So, in a way, to create a fun method for participatory decisions is really important. Otherwise, we will really say, okay, I don't want to go participatory. I prefer someone to decide. To so it's important to make it fun, to make it embodied, and also, as Amit was saying, to make it relatively short. The session, and not to make it that it takes so much that people say, okay, let's better to have a dictator that tells us what to do, because at least is less we are less frustrated. So also related to the idea of deepening democracy, on the issue of international law that you were mentioning, Uri, etc. So how we can make all this relatively fast, engaging, exciting, and to build ownership of the rules. No, that is my law, and I will respect it because I contributed to make it. And it's in a way an antidote to the the democracy becoming something that is considered weak, inconclusive, and so better we get rid of it.
Yeah. I remember, Angelo, that in one of the first drafts of the article, you wrote the beautiful quote that said that laws are always a manifestation of someone's desires.
Yeah.
Uh, and obviously it's true. It is, and the question is it going to be a plural someone desires, or is it going to be an individual desire who impose their law? And the more we make the process to be a fun process, the more we cater for the intervention of the greater part of the group.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. I mean, when people know that they have to meet to make a decision, sometimes they start getting frustrated and like,
Yeah.
oh, again we have the meeting. This is gonna be horrible. I hope it takes. Do I have an excuse not to go? And so. And if we want to get to a point that people say, oh, we have to make a decision, great, no, let's go. And this is about how we conduct the whole process and how to make it short, conclusive, and fun. And it's a challenge. No, we don't have the magic solution, but we do trust that this is the way. No, and it can be improved, but we at least in these three examples that we mentioned, Australia, Milan, and the Eco Village, it was actually deep and fun. No?
Yeah.
The two things, and I remember in particular the one I facilitated on the parents, the elder parents. How can I take care of my mother? How can I take care of my father when I'm living in the eco village? It was a big thing. No, everyone was like immediately resonating with that. No, that they all had someone elder, maybe not the parents, but other people they cared about, and so it wasn't impersonal. No, as we said, legislative theater is impersonal in the sense that I write the law on disability for an entire region, then I don't know the people that will benefit from it. No, there is no, and it is an act of love towards people I will never meet. No, so this legislation. Uh, Legislative rainbow is that everyone was sharing that same, they were in the same soup, no, they were in the same thing, that they all had elder people to take care of, and they didn't know how uh, to balance their life in the ecosystem with the caring for their elder parents. So I feel that's needed and beautiful. No, in a way, also it's not only fun but also deep in touching things in which people resonate and they actually take decisions together. No, I think in that case they were also talking about having sometimes the parents to come visit. No, in the eco village. But so is another way to open. Know how the community is opening to other people outside. So I think that is also important.
Mm. Yeah, fascinating. So let's see where what 2026 will bring, and you know, I'll keep watching the space and seeing you know, whether it's online or in Italy or somewhere else. I look forward to see how it unfolds and maybe collaborate, share. I think there is again, I already said that I think it's needed, but I think um um yeah, it's happening somehow. It's something that is calling, so I'm pretty confident, and I feel 2026 is the year of realization, is the year of building. So I have that sense, and it's uh, and who knows, you know, and maybe it will go beyond our imaginations even.
Yeah. I
Mhm.
reflect when you were saying needed, that needed come from the word need, has to do a lot with, in NVC we speak about needs, but here we speak about desire. So let's say that it's a model that I would have loved it to be desired by people much more than needed by them. Yeah.
Yeah.
The rainbow of
Because
desires.
I remember that I promised to explain why we speak about demons and not about fears. And there were two reasons, and I will conclude with it. There were two reasons for the choice of this mythical idea of a demon and not a fear. First, for the very simple action reason, fears it's stuck. Fears does not promote an action. Fear promote a not moving. Our first reaction in fear, as any mammal, it's to be stuck, to be frozen, not to take an action, but to take a not action. But there was also the point that in mythologies, you probably know it, demons or calling them fallen angel or other name. They are normally desires that got bad. It's just the other side of the desire that got bad, like a fallen angel. So yeah, we want to bring them because they are still having the potent of transition, of becoming something else, of transcending to something else. Yeah.
Yeah, for our desires for becoming good again, and including our demons becoming aware of their own goodness, possible potential goodness, and transformation. I feel. And yeah, thank you for being in this library amphitheater conversation. And again, if you're listening and you arrive till the end, check out the website and the article and see how you want to engage with it.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Uri and Amit.
Thank you, and see you.
And regeneration is our collective responsibility.
Regeneration.
Universal
Regeneration.
right.
Imagination.
Human nature.
Social